The first thing that comes to my mind when I hear Chicago Public Schools is students or youth getting education. I think of kids being able to learn to better their knowledge.
So I really have no expectations really for Chicago Public Schools. So yeah.
When I hear about Chicago Public Schools, I think about the strikes.
A lot of things come to my mind. I mean, I think about my experience, but then I also think about, the experiences that kids are having nowadays. I feel like, there's been a lot of issues with CPS. I couldn't name them all, but I mean, I'm sure you guys all know, what's been going on. Like, I feel like a lot of, teachers have been going on strike. I feel like, there are a lot of, kids who come from low-income neighborhoods who, have to travel very far to go to these CPS schools, and I think it's great, that they get the opportunity to attend these schools, but then there's also schools who don't have the funding, you know what I mean? So you don't get a really great education, and as you know, we're the future of this country, of this world, and I just feel like if we're not, providing the resources that we could make available to these students, then it's unfortunate, you know what I mean? I just feel like a lot more needs to be done, and I feel like it's not being done. I feel like people feel strongly about it, but I feel like the more we talk about it and start that conversation, I feel like things could change, and I feel like they will change because it's just essential, you know what I mean? So.
Well, a lot of what I hear is from the news, so I hear a lot of problems of funding issues and a lot of teacher strikes. So I think the biggest thing is you hear a lot of problems and not a lot of good things, so that's mainly just the issues.
The first thing that comes to my mind with Chicago Public Schools is budget crisis.
To be honest, I don't know a lot about Chicago Public Schools. I didn't grow up in the area, but the general gist I get from teacher friends is that it's kind of disorganized, budgets are difficult, sort of a mess in general, very different experiences for different people.
What I think about CPS is they suck. They need to get it together.
Well, I would say that I have more of a negative opinion because I obviously went to a school in the suburbs, so it's really it's a school where you get a lot of opportunities to do things. I never feel like I get to hear about the opportunities given to students in the CPS schools, so I feel like most of the time I hear CPS talked about in a negative light.
Probably not.
Okay.
Probably not.
Any justification?
Any justification as to not? At this point, I think it's just really I wouldn't have money to send them elsewhere, so I'd have no choice but to send them there. But the way the educational system is, I guess, trending right now, I wouldn't feel safe sending my children to any kind of public schools. Just from everything that's going on.
I actually would. It would, however, depend on the public school. I do think some of them offer great education and they're pretty safe, so it depends.
No, I would not send my kids there.
What needs to happen to improve Chicago Public Schools? I would say creative arts. That always helps students grow. I think it helps expand the mind, the thought, a creative process, and I think we can all use a little creativity in this world. So adding arts, adding music, adding dance, anything with visual live arts.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing to happen is funding needs to be created, and that's a hard question to answer. Where are we going to get funding from? And again, it has to go where people need to be aware of the issues, and there needs to be more of a push towards getting education to the point where we have a solid education nationwide rather than focusing on state education. So we need to have more of a national opportunity to have more funding, not just from the state, but maybe a government level.
That's a very good question. I'm sure it's a complicated answer that I probably can't give you, but an idea or just a thought that I have would be having a better dedicated budget to it and not trying to pinch pennies when it comes to education, because it's important and we should be prioritizing that as an investment and not deprioritizing it.
I think what needs to happen to improve Chicago Public Schools is I think we need to rethink our curriculum. Kids should be learning about civics, about finance, and less about some of the mundane topics and mundane courses that really don't apply to the real world.
I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I just feel like, you know, in order to change to happen, I feel like people need to be aware of like the issues. I feel like people need to talk about it. You know, I feel like just the rhetoric needs to be created. You know, people need to know that this is happening, and this just, I feel like this starts off especially with like, you know, the kids that are in school now. I feel like they need to share their experiences with other people. I feel like parents who obviously care about their children and bringing them up and like, you know, and sending them to a good school, I feel like they need to speak up. I think they need to share their experience, and like if, you know, if they're not like given, you know, just like I mentioned, like the resources, I feel like just people don't know about it. So I feel like just starting the conversation and just telling people, making them aware of it will bring more people together. And then the more people we have, I feel like, you know, something could happen from that. You know what I mean?